Great, we just completed the draft. As I mentioned during the draft, heading into the draft and whatnot, that I would take a look at a cross section of players who get drafted outside the first round, a little bit of a bio kind of thing, courtesy of hockeyprospect.com, and of course on their site if you buy the Hockey Prospects Black Book, using the coupon code TheHockeyGuy, all lowercase, all one word. You can get a $5 discount on the book right now if you want to read up on the prospects. That being said, let's take a look at 9. So I picked 9. I just went with 9 off the board. I did a whole board of draft picks from rounds 2 through 5. Now, we've got one on the board that's from round 7 because it's interesting. So let's go ahead and go through the 9. First up, Vancouver drafts Nils Hoglander. Now, the first thing that stood out to me with Hoglander is he's smaller, 5'9". Guys who slipped in the draft this year were either smaller or their skating was an issue. And I think if it's both, you really fell in this draft. He is a left winger. He was rated 23rd by Hockey Prospects among skaters, so that doesn't include goaltenders, obviously. And he was drafted 40th overall. So that's a good value pick for Vancouver if you believe the scouting. And here's what the scouting says. He struggled early, but he improved as the season went along. He is a dynamic winger and skater, and he has great hands. The problem is his size limits his ability to drive to the net. So him being 5'9", it's harder for him to get to the front of the net. And when you've got a winger, that's kind of where you want him to be. He's a good skater, but he needs more power to his skating. So again, skating's good. He's smaller. He drops in the draft. He is a likely third liner, and they say he's going to be a playoff performer, one of those heart and soul kind of guys. Think like an Oscar Sundqvist type. And maybe without some of the physicality, of course, but that's seems to be a decent, and I hate comparing players. Layton Ahac, who I know I just butchered that, for Vegas. He was rated at 36. He's a defenseman out of Prince George, played in the BC League. 6'1", 188 pounds. Vegas gets good value, drafting him at 86th. He is a guy who had 53 games played, 4 goals, 28 assists for 32 points in the BC League this year. He's a minute-eating defender, so he plays a lot, and he likes to play a lot. Very good defensively with some raw offensive upside. So basically, he was picked up by Vegas with the idea that he will likely be a stay-at-home blue liner at the NHL level when he gets there. And the one thing that could be an issue, and it's skating. Poor skating. So again, you've got a guy who's rated at 36, drafted 86th, and scouting says poor skating mechanics. And he's susceptible to getting beaten wide, which poor skating mechanics will make that happen. And they say that his top potential, he could be a top 4 defenseman, but he's got to improve his skating for that to happen. So again, this is kind of a theme, right? So he's a bigger player. Layton's over 6 foot, but they say his skating needs to improve. Albert Johansson, son of Roger Johansson, who played for Calgary. He's 5'10", 165 pounds, so he's small. He was rated 49th. He, of course, is a defenseman. He ends up being drafted 60th by Detroit. He played well on a team of older players. So one thing you're looking at is he likely to make the jump to the NHL sooner or later? And in this case, Yzerman seems to have, at this draft, really looked for guys who might be willing and able to help sooner rather than later. He had 3 games in the SHL and did well in those 3 games, as well as playing in the upper league as well. He does need to work on his skating. His defensive turnovers are an issue, so he needs to work on his skating and just the turnovers defensively. But it says right in this prospect report, he could be a sleeper. This is the kind of guy that when he gets drafted, he could end up being a very rewarding draft pick for you. Harrison Blaisdell. I had to talk about Harrison Blaisdell because I thought he would go at 62 because he was rated at 61. So see what I did there? I just went, well, there was one goalie in the first round, so 61 becomes 62. Bam! He'll get drafted 62nd overall by St. Louis. Nah. He went 134th. He's 5'11", 181 pounds. Played for the Chilliwack Chiefs just down the street. BC League as well. 33 goals to go with his 56 points in 51 games. He is seen as a sniper. Strong for his size. So again, he's below 6 foot and drops to 134th in the draft. This is why when I talk about players who are smaller and, well, I don't know, NHL level, and I see people saying, Shannon, things have changed now. They don't look at that. GMs just look at skill, just pure skill. The size doesn't matter. This draft tells me they still think size matters. He is aggressive, and he has a strong wrist shot, and he's very good at deking players out. The one problem is he's not a great skater. Ta-da! So, again, just random list of 9 names I put up here, and the drawbacks seem to be the skating a lot of the time. He's a potential top 9 forward. So, Winnipeg, again, considering you're drafting at 134th, you get a guy who's a potential top 9 forward in the NHL. That's not bad. Next up, Minnesota drafts Hunter Jones, goaltender, 6'4", 196 pounds. So a big goaltender. He was rated 4th among this goaltender class by Hockey Prospects, and he's one of 3 goalies I've got on the board. He was drafted 59th overall, which seems higher than he was projected to go. He had a poor second half compared to the first. He has excellent reflexes. He's a tough goaltender, and great reflexes for his age. So he's ahead of the curve that way. He did wear down facing 40 shots a night. Now in Minnesota, he won't face 40 shots a night in all likelihood. He needs to work on his error correct. So basically, if he's made a mistake, be able to recover and cover for that mistake. So those are the 2 things that showed up on his report that he needs to work on. But with some work, he will be an NHL level goaltender. So he projects as an outside shot of making it, but with the right team, and Minnesota's definitely good at grooming goaltenders, he very likely ends up being NHL level. This is the one that interested people, and I had Calgary Flames fans talking to me about this one, Dustin Wolf. So Dustin Wolf, who really put up tremendous numbers in the WHL this year, gets drafted 214th. He was rated 5th among goaltenders by hockeyprospect.com again. And here's the difference. He's drafted 214th. We've got a goalie here, LA drafts, that wasn't rated in the top 5. He goes at 87th. The difference, the goalie that went 87th is 6'4", and Dustin Wolf, 5'11 and a half. Short goaltenders are not highly coveted in the NHL. So I think that's why Wolf fell. He's 156 pounds. That's light. I know goaltenders, you can get the equipment to upsize you a little bit, but 156 pounds is slight. Now, working in his favor, of course, is goaltenders usually take a minimum of 2 to 3 years before they're ready for the NHL. Matt Murray and Carter Hart might be changing that conversation a little bit, but odds are Wolf's a ways out. And there's decent goaltending depth in the Calgary organization. I don't think they're going to rush him at all. He had a 1.69 goals against and a 936 save percentage in the regular season this year. Those are amazing numbers. In the playoffs, a 2.14 goals against average and a 914 save percentage. And what Hockey Prospect goes out of its way to say is his numbers aren't as reflective of the team he played with as people might think. That he's a very good goaltender on a very good team. And I put, and there's an asterisk next to it because I put size may have caused the drop. I really think size caused him to drop. Great at puck tracking. And Saros is the one they used as a comparable. So in some areas, he's just as good as Saros. And in others, he needs to work on some things. He needs better structure to his game. That's a bit of a red flag, especially if he's 5'11 and a half. So he takes up less of the net, and his structure is an issue. And then he needs to be more aggressive. And smaller goaltenders, it helps if you're aggressive and you make the players make the move. So those are things he needs to work on. But they do say he is one of the best mentally in the draft class. And again, and I've talked about this before, when you're a smaller player, and I speak from my time just in high school, being shorter than everybody else, you have to be a little more aggressive, and you have to think the game at a different level than the guy who's almost a foot taller than you and has that reach and has the long legs. And so you kind of got to go, all right, if I'm going to keep up with you and if I'm going to be as good as you at this, I'm going to have to think and work a heck of a lot harder. Montreal. Matthias Norlinder gets drafted by Montreal. He was rated 51st by Hockey Prospect. He is 64th in the draft. 5'10", 179 pounds. He's a defenseman. A lot of defensemen on the board. That was not intentional. I just went with random names. No, they're defensemen. He has already made the jump into the men's league. So that helps. Again, you're looking for guys like, okay, he's already playing against men. We know how well he plays against guys who are, not just teenagers and junior age. We get a good idea of how close he is. Dominant, though, against junior age players. So he's playing at junior age, gets bumped up to the men's league, plays well, gets dropped back down to juniors when his men's team misses the playoffs, and is dominant after he goes back. Great skater and strong offense. So these are all things that Montreal fans have to be coveting in a blue liner right now. And this is the one caveat, the one thing I could find that I said, okay, it's his second year of draft eligibility, meaning he's older than everybody else on the board. In all likelihood, he's older than everybody else on the board. But at the same time, a guy who in his second year of draft eligibility gets drafted and does well, Tanner Pearson's a good example of that. So second year is the only thing I could find at all that I said, it's kind of a red flag, I guess, that all 31 teams passed on him last year, but he did really well, and they say he could be a draft steal. So again, 5'10", might have brought him down a little bit, but he has great skating, good offense. This kid could be a steal. Miko Kokkonen, drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs, 5'11", 198 pounds. He was rated 105th. So this is kind of the opposite, where he was really kind of rated really low. He ends up being drafted 84th. So he gets drafted ahead of guys who were rated way above him in the Hockey Prospect Black Book. He had 19 points in 56 games in the men's league. And that's the one really kind of positive, like super positive thing I could find. He matured early, but he was passed this year by his peers. He needs to improve his skating to reach the NHL. And really, he looks like a French prospect right now. So this is one of those ones that it's kind of a head scratcher. Maybe we look back 2 years from now and say, you know what, this report's kind of wrong. Or maybe Toronto looked at his skating and said, we can fix that, and they liked some other part of his game. He was one of those guys who looked pretty darn solid, but he grew quickly. And so he finished his growth spurt, and then everybody else caught him, and their talent level passed his. So he was highly thought of. He kind of dropped in draft rankings. Now on the LA side of things, Lucas Parik was drafted, goaltender. And I know if you're an LA follower, you're thinking, why would we draft a goaltender? Because you never have too many goaltenders. I do hope that Peterson and Campbell get their shot at being the tandem this year, and I think they'll be great. But it could be Quick and Peterson. I want Cal Peterson in the NHL, let's be honest. But this kid's 6'4", 185 pounds. And again, he was not rated in the top 5. All they did was rate the top 5 by Hockey Prospect. But again, while Dustin Wolf had better numbers, this kid's 6'4". People will go with 6'4". It's like Mad Sogard, who's not on the board, 6'7". So these are big goaltenders, and this is the way that it's been, the way that it's going, and it looks like it's just going to continue that way. He was the Czech under 18 goaltender from November on. So he kind of came out of nowhere for scouts that early on in the year, he suddenly was their starting goaltender, and once he took that, he never let it go. Quick, and he doesn't quit on shots. So very, very competitive. He needs to improve his rebound control. That can be coached. And he has trouble catching with his glove hand. So there are pucks that deflect off his glove hand, either back out in front of the net or deflect and somehow end up behind him. So again, these are coachable. That's something that's coachable. When you look at Dustin Wolf and you see the structure and needs to be more aggressive. Well, you can try to coach aggression, but it has to be there for the player in their mentality and their makeup. So Parik is seen as a guy with great potential. So LA, a team that's known for drafting goaltenders and molding them into being pretty darn good, they may have got another steal here in Parik. That's 6'4", 185 pounds. That's pretty solid. So a team that was already pretty solid in net when you look at their depth, picked up a little bit more. So there you go. 9 picks. I may very well do another video like this where I take another 9 picks from the second round and beyond. We'll see how this video does. If it does well, I'll do another one. If it doesn't do well, this is the one and done. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.